Hello and welcome to Shalom College. Shalom College has been preparing students for adult life since 1984. The college was established after the closure of the Christian Brothers College for Boys and Loyola College for Girls. Although much has changed since Shalom College's opening, our basic educational principles have not. Our college exists to make a difference. Let's roll back time to 1984 and discover the journey to what has become Shalom College today.
Needed a playing field for the children, and we sent the bishop, and then he gave us there where the top field is, and we got all that ready, and John Santalucia cleared it for me, and Peter Byrne was president of the old boys, and we got that all done then and made into a big playing field for all the kids here, boys here and the girls. And then, as I said, the day of the opening, the bishop come down forward to bless it. Alan Stewart, the mayor, said, "Geez, college up there looked good," which was already in my mind, because the playing field was the thin edge of the wedge.
Yeah, look, my earliest memory of Shalom here was before the buildings were here. Lisa's father had cleared the land, and on a number of sport days, the students from Christian Brothers were bussed here to what would become the grounds for Shalom, and our job was to spend the afternoon picking up sticks. So that's my earliest memories of this school.
But we were pretty lucky, but we were very isolated. As I said, it was all very bushy and treed. It was just a track down here, not a bitumen road like you're coming down now, just a dirt track, which grew, and it grew with the school.
Brother Hogan and I met every day, and we knew where we were going, and we seen the plans and everything, and everything worked very good. We were extremely lucky and extremely blessed, and that we got everything we wanted, which was great, so that we opened with a complete establishment, and something that we could all be proud of, and something that was useful and great right from the first day.
The principal in the first year here at Shalom was Brother Hogan, and he had previously been the principal at Christian Brothers, and it must have been a huge task for him to, plan the school, get the buildings done, and then get that first year underway. And a real credit to him, he really did set the scene for what is here today. As you'd imagine, that first year, he had a lot of meetings and just a lot of organising, and it would be fair to say that probably the person who was on the ground, who was really trying to instill the culture of the place, was Brother Hogan's successor as principal, who was Brother McGee. And he's probably the chap that most of us students dealt with on a daily basis, and he was very much the right man for that job. He was fantastic. So between the two of them, whoever decided to put those two together, I think made some really good decisions, and they were a really, really good team.
Well, certainly I suppose when I first came, it was a building stage. The school had just been built. It was wonderfully set out, a very well sort of designed school. And probably the only thing that sort of happened during my time was to ensure that somehow or other we maintained the charisms of the two founding people, Catherine McCauley and Edmund Rice. Catherine, of course, was the founder of the Sisters of Mercy, Edmund, the founder of the Christian Brothers. So we had two strong traditions on which to build, which would have been the former Christian Brothers School and Loyola College as well. My task in '85, when I arrived as principal, was that the school came together for the first time completely, from right through the secondary classes. The first year, it just had year 11 and 12 boys and girls, and just boys in the other classes, but finally in '85, all together. So it was a chance to develop something different, a chance to do something new, a chance to sort of see how we could develop two charisms together and define our own spirit of what the school was about.
Brother Ted McGee started in 1985 after Brother Hogan left. Now, he was responsible for coming into the school, and there was a big building program. He did lots of other things around the school as well. He started the Car Arts Union, which went for 20 years. In those times, fundraising was hard, and he commenced that, and it really helped the school. He was passionate about pastoral care.
I've never really wanted to go anywhere else. I did teach it in 2 other schools before Shalom, and they were very good schools. But it's the community of Shalom, in both teachers and students, administration, that just makes you feel comfortable being here. So I really have never wanted to seek anywhere else. I have family in Bundaberg, so we never really wanted to move away from Bundaberg either. So yeah, I've just always liked what this school offers teachers and students.
What you had to do, we didn't have to be told to do things. We knew a job, we did the job, but we just loved the life. We just loved it. It was very busy, 24/7, and there was lots and lots of things happening, particularly in the last years of our time here. But no, just loved the work, loved the people, absolutely loved the people, yeah.
When I first started here, and my roles here at Shalom were probably whatever was needed to be done, I did, in as far as the grounds go and the buildings. For the first 2 years, there was only me doing grounds work, mowing, and I did have help with the community to come in with the mowing of fields at weekends and stuff, but the actual in around the 5 acres of buildings as it was then was myself, and there was a lot of building rubbish had to be cleaned up. We did have an old Land Rover we inherited. We took millions of loads to the dump just to clean up the general grounds before the main opening.
Lots of difficulties. That we had no paths, we had no coverings between classrooms, so when it rained, we got wet. There was no big covered area for the kids to have lunch in or anything. And then we walked on planks around the school because they were always trying to establish the grounds. And it was muddy, and so there were planks around the buildings, and we walked on those to get access from one building to the other.
There was other buildings there of historical value which are long gone, which upset some people because they had plaques on them and all the rest of it, but progress moves on. And we kept building every year. We built another classroom, another classroom, another classroom. They eventually got their own way, and we did have a chapel in the middle of all of the buildings there, but the ground became more valuable than the chapel eventually.
I started at Shalom on day one in 1984. So what had happened was that there had been no senior secondary education for girls in Bundaberg. They went to Loyola until year 10, and then they went to Bundy High, whereas the boys had Christian Brothers and could go through to year 12. So in 1983, a class of girls went to Christian Brothers for year 11, and then in 1984 we came out here. So I actually went to Christian Brothers with that first group of girls, and I had the pastoral responsibility for the girls in 1983. I started the Christian Brothers College on the 8th of February 1982. In 1984 we moved out here to Shalom. So actually I have worked for 36 and a half years with Catholic education, 34 and a half of those with Shalom. I finished here at Shalom in June 2018.
It was a bit unusual, obviously, to have the name Shalom. But the bishop at the time, Bishop Wallace, was a biblical scholar. So the schools he named around the diocese at that time all had sort of biblical names, and Shalom just happened to be one that he chose. So I think that's how it got its name, really.
I don't know whether a lot of people are aware, but Brother Ted McGee is my brother, and it gave us a real chance as a family to get to know each other when he returned to Bundaberg. I was his secretary, which was something I didn't know how that was going to go. But of course we became very close and we got on very well, and we still do. And we actually work together again now.
There was a group of us in Bundaberg who were crying out for a co-ed school to replace a separate boys' school and a separate girls' school. And after some initial delays, the bishop finally approved it being built. I think the approval came in about 1982, but it was 1984 before we opened it. A number of people around the place thought I was a win at all costs sort of a person. At one stage, a staff member from one of the high schools who actually thought that way was joined our staff here, and after a couple of months he got me on the quiet. He said, "You know, you're not the guy who wants to win at all costs, are you?" I said, "No, never have been." He said, "You just want the kids to do the best they can, don't you?" I said, "Yes." And that was my aim all the way. So when if they made a commitment to a sport, they made a commitment to a sport. And we worked pretty hard to make them competent, and we were very fortunate that they did win quite a few things that possibly they shouldn't have won.
Yeah, look, one of the sports I did while I was here was running, middle distance running. There was a teacher here by the name of Jim Stevenson, who was very influential, not just with myself, but a whole bunch of students here in terms of athletics in general. And in my case, he coached me in middle distance running. Once I left school, I left it for a year. I went off to university and I didn't run. But then in my second year at university, had a conversation with Jim and thought that this is something I'd like to pursue. And I had 4 years left at uni. I thought, well, 4 years is long enough to see where I can go with it. And it really spent the next 11 years pursuing it. Had some success, also had some disappointments, but yes, it was a wonderful 11 years.
One comes to mind is Simon Doyle. Simon eventually became number 2 in the world at 1,500 metres. Was selected in the Australian Olympic team to go to Barcelona. Reluctantly, he had to withdraw when he had a major injury. He still doesn't want to talk about it. I'm maintaining that the way the race was run, I watched it, he'd have won it. But anyway, he'd beaten everybody in the final that year, earlier in the year.
Well, initially, I don't think it was an official position of sports mistress, but it was took on the role of that. And then I became a year coordinator, firstly in year 8, and then finished my time here in year 10.
Yes, Brother Vince Connors came to us after Brother McGee was transferred. He was a lovely man. He came from Nudgee in Brisbane. And I still remember his secretary. She was sort of a high flyer, I would say, and I sort of felt a little bit apprehensive about how he'd find me. But anyway, we got on really well. The school progressed, and actually Brother Connors became like part of our family, and I'm still in touch with Brother Connors today.
The relationship with staff, with kids, and with parents. That was my most rewarding experience, I think. They do need to be supported and feel as though they've got a backing of their school behind them. I said the best children, boys and girls, come from the best homes. I said the second best thing to happen for those kids is a good school. But that's not the most important. The most important thing is where they started. We painted pine trees to mark the occasion, one for each of the years. As far as I know, they're still going strong. probably bigger than ever. 10 years bigger. End of 93 I finished at Shalom. And I asked to get out, not because I was fed up with Shalom, but because I was starting to experience a few health problems. And so I rang our provincial, our big boss, and I said to him, Len, I'm sorry to say that I'm going to have to ask you if I can resign at the end of this year. And he said, why is that? And I said, Len, I have had it. I've given this place everything I know how to give. This is my 4th year here. I had 8 years previous to that at Nudgee, 8.5 actually. And I said, and I gave every ounce of my energy there. I ran out of puff. It needed a new face. And I said, this place probably is the same, probably needs a new face. And it certainly did, and it got new faces, quick smart.
Brother Nev Feeney came to Shalom. He either came from the Northern Territory or somewhere up near the top of Queensland there. He was a very likeable fellow, outgoing. He started the markets. The markets came out here. We as a staff manned the driveway, conducting the traffic, and this went on for a few months until, we saw how things went. No, he was a lovely man too.
One day this woman came and asked for an interview. It was Mrs. Tanya Kramer, and she said that she had run markets in one of the car parks at a shopping centre in the city, and for whatever reason that arrangement had fallen through, and she asked if the possibility could be that she moved her markets out to Shalom. It happened to be a Friday, and that night we had one of the dances that we used to have in the covered area there. So myself and a couple of the teachers were on duty supervising the dance, and I put the proposition to them, what do they think of the markets coming out here? And they were very supportive. I remember Brian Easthoff particularly being really supportive. So the following week we took the idea to the leadership team in the school and then to wider staff. They all were happy with it. So then we got a solicitor, I think his name was Baker, father of a student in the school, and he negotiated a contract with Tanya as to how the markets would run and what sort of take the school could expect from them. I think we were on a receipt of so much per every stall that was there, and then we had the right to run the canteen, to serve morning teas and cakes and that sort of thing, and also to run a barbecue that could serve hot breakfasts or whatever. The idea was that the barbecue would be run by clubs within the school. The kids would come along and run the barbecue, and whatever they were, say if it was the rowers, the footballers or whatever, they would get the profits from the day if they wanted to tour or whatever they wanted to do with their sporting ventures. The canteen, the ladies there or whoever helped in the canteen, and many of them did help, that went into the general profits. So we had the two sources from Tanya and then from whatever we did there ourselves to raise money. An extraordinary result. It started quite well. The crowds grew very quickly, and a surprise for me, people coming to the markets were expressing surprise that they never knew that Shalom existed. They lived in Bundaberg all their lives and had been oblivious to the fact, and they saw the place and fell in love with it. So as the year went on, we got more pressure for numbers. So the next year we had an increase in numbers, the following year the same thing, and that led to the necessity of extending the 8, 9 and 10, sticking extra classrooms onto them to cater. Then over in the 11th and 12th grade area, a dramatic arts area was built, and that freed up classrooms that we could take in more at the top of the end of the school. So an unexpected return, apart from the finances, was this promotion of the school that led to a significant growth, which has continued, I believe, right up till today as well. The school's doubled since I was there. It has grown so dramatically. So that was a great benefit from the markets.
Oh, I still miss Shalom, yeah. And hence why I'm really happy for my students, my children to be students here now. And I'm partly involved in small ways from time to time when I can contribute. And yeah, it's a joy to come back anytime to offer assistance in whatever I can. Yeah.
I think the site, I used to think very kindly of the benefactors back in the 1800s who donated that piece of dirt to the church. And then I thought kindly of also the church authorities who hadn't sold it off. They had sectioned off one part for the Catholic cemetery at the front, and on the other side of the front they had sectioned off another part for the Endeavour Foundation people to run a facility for otherwise able young people. But the rest of it sat there for many years waiting for something to happen. And then at the right time, the good decision was made to move the school out there. And it was just a beautiful site, and the way in which the planners of the initial school laid it out, it was just wonderful to be out in that environment. And I think as far as Catholicity goes, to have the daily reminder when you come into school, you're going past that cemetery, what's Catholic education all about, except it's not preparing you for that ultimate end. That's where you're going to be, or hopefully up the top. And the great gospel value of looking after everybody, you're going past this facility that's looking after people that desperately need good help. So it was just a beautiful sight.
So Pat Wall came to Shalom in 1996. He was our first lay principal, so that was totally different to Shalom. We'd had all Christian brothers. Once again, he was great to work for as well. I've had some great working relationships. He had worked in Rockhampton and he had a lot of experience. He built the sports centre, the performing arts, and he also encouraged the music program. So a lot was done while Pat was here.
So we had to build a few buildings to ensure that everything went smoothly. As far as I know, it did. By the time I got there, it was established, but it still had a lot of work to be done. Well, it was I suppose it was a pretty common thing now that schools were building big gymnasiums, that type of thing, and halls. And I'd been partly responsible for putting the one up at Marymount, and that was a great success because we could improve the physical education of the kids, and we had access to put into practice the things that they were learning in the classroom. It was also very handy for various assemblies and even masses on the weekend for the local population. So yeah, we looked around and we went to various other places that had already put them there, and saw what was good and what was bad, how you would say cool it down, because it was going to be a sweaty sort of area. So we had to make sure that we had all the stuff, 100%. And I think it was a great achievement. We actually built it on a floodplain, so we had to build it up a little bit, but it wasn't high enough for classes underneath. So, that might have been one of the things that we should have done a little bit better. But anyway, it's worked out pretty well.
While I was here at Shalom, we had the opening of the sports centre, which was fantastic, an amazing facility, and that's where we actually did all of our rehearsals for Rocker Stedford.
Gradually progressed, and I would walk through here just about every day, along with Rob Alexander and Pat Wall and all of those guys, to see it evolve, and saw my teaching room evolve, and we had a couple of practice rooms, and it was just all so exciting. Pat was amazing in providing for the students with the precinct, and followed up by the dance department.
And it is a big building. It was pretty expensive, and we then wanted to put on an annex to the back so that we could offer dancing and that sort of thing. And so that side of education, encouraging people to, get involved in that sort of thing, putting on shows and putting good singers or something into competitions and whatnot. It added an extra, facility, because otherwise all we had before then was a classroom, and it wasn't really that sort of stuff that we were looking at.
The first thing was the development of the Performing Arts Precinct. I was invited along with Jackie Smith and Hutchins, who used to be here as Tony Hutchins, and we initially sat in some of the meetings in relation to where it should be placed. Perhaps that's the most important bit, and what we wanted in the theatre.
I do know a few years after I left was the opening of the Performing Arts Centre, and have had the privilege of attending, a concert there, and that was incredible. And I do laugh about the little music shed that we used to practice choir in out the back of the Oval, which was just as enjoyable. But certainly the Performance Arts Centre is next level.
Shalom College isn't only based at this wonderful location. We have an outdoor education and environment centre at South Bingra, west of our great city Bundaberg. This 70-hectare facility provides our students with exhilarating outdoor activities, purposeful environmental education and personal development. We manage this through organised camps and retreats. All students are given the opportunity to use its fantastic facilities.
Really, I'm very proud of Cobram because there was nothing like that. We had to take the students a fair way away towards Brisbane and hire Nudgee College's facility for that. And of course it was all a bit messy. So we decided we'll buy some land just outside Bundaberg, and it's a bit cheaper there too. And it's on the river, and it's easy to get to, and then we can offer the outdoor education skills and show that anybody can go down a cliff provided they're careful. It was 3 days out. They stayed there overnight, and they really liked that and looked forward to it, and it was a bit of a break. And we did realise that quite a few schools in the bigger places did have these sort of facilities. But we didn't have to hire anything, we had our own. And we had high ropes courses and low ropes courses, and we had a gymnasium out there. Not as fancy as the one at Shalom, but it was good.
In 2009, Mr. Dan McMahon arrived at Shalom. Dan was innovative. He wanted the best for the students in buildings, in teaching strategies. He established himself here well at Shalom and has been responsible, as you know, for a lot of building.
We've done some great work here on the facilities of the place. There are not many schools as well set up as Shalom facility-wise. So very proud of what we've been able to do there, and very grateful to the parents who keep paying school fees that enable us to do that sort of development. Probably the building, of all the buildings we've done here, I probably like the one we're sitting in at the moment, Waterford, a lot. It's a reflection of a different style of teaching. It engages young people better. Teachers love it. It's taken away the privacy of teaching. It's taken away that sense that I had when I started my teaching career, and for many years in my teaching career, where I went to my classroom, shut the door, and it was my little kingdom. Here, it's none of that. You're connected, you've got to communicate with others, you've got to interact, you learn from others. It's a beautiful space, and young people like being here. And next year, by this time next year, we'll have another one very similar to it in the Coolock building. And those two buildings, Waterford and Coolock, memorialise our prime foundations here, our prime Genesis stories in Edmund Rice and Catherine Macaulay, the Christian Brothers and the Sisters of Mercy, who founded the two schools that Shalom has become. So that's really significant in a different way. Beyond that, we've got the solar farm, which is great that we're now virtually a green school, and a school this size. That's been a wonderful addition. The sporting facilities are terrific. Just got the new ovals on Enterprise Street, which have been a great addition. The additions in the performing arts department, the band room, just enable the expansion of all those activities over there. We'll start a redevelopment of a refurbishment of our classroom blocks as soon as the next building's finished. So I think Shalom is only going to get better. I'm struggling to say bigger. I don't know if we'll get too much bigger, but it'll certainly get better than we even are now, to make sure young people have a lovely environment in which to live and learn and grow. The most important thing I see in this place and my job as a principal is to create a positive culture here, where young people they feel safe every day when they come to school, that they're supported, that staff have the ability to teach well, and we've got a culture that encourages excellence and young people to push themselves and do well. So creating that culture, I think, is the biggest job I've got as a leader. And probably with that, to just make sure that's completely in sync with our mission statement. Like, I love our mission statement, and I think it spells out really clearly what we're about. And I think that we not just talk the talk on that, but I think we walk the walk in the elements of that mission statement to encourage young people to be the best they can be.
Shalom definitely influenced my future. When I was a gappy, I wanted to be a speech pathologist. I was very certain that's what I wanted to do. However, working in a school environment, I was like, I can do this. Like, I want to be a teacher. And now I'm second year into my degree. I'm loving it. And I'm so excited to be a professional educator. I also think working at Shalom, I have seen so many amazing educators, not only that have taught me, but as a staff member and as a teacher aide, going into classes, I can see exactly who I want to be. And it has really inspired me to be one of the best teachers I can be.
I think another significant change is our pastoral care structure. In 2009, we had, like most schools, a horizontal pastoral care structure of year 8s to 12s in those days. Introducing the vertical house structure was a big move here. It wasn't universally popular among staff at the time, and there was a sense of, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Much to Dan's surprise, I didn't really like him very much when he first came because he was making big changes. And some of those changes were the vertical pastoral care, and I'm one of those creatures of habit that likes things to stay the same when they're going fine. But he could see into the future and see what we needed to do. And he had lots of experience with schools that were big schools, and we were developing into a big school. And I was really, I really appreciated his vision.
But I think that change has given young people a chance to feel more at home here. They like being in their house. It's their small home in a big community. And primarily also, it helps me ensure that every young person here is known. In that time, we've grown from a school of about 1,000 kids to a school of 1,600 students. So it's been a big increase. And it's really important to make sure that young people feel known, that someone knows their name, something about them. So that role of the house coordinator and the pastoral care teacher is really significant. As well as the other opportunity it's given is for all Year 12s to be leaders, that every Year 12 gets a chance to make a difference to a student in Year 7 by being a big brother, big sister, by leading a pastoral care group. They all get a bit of ownership in the leadership structure rather than an elite few.
There were so many experiences at Shalom that were really beneficial to me. Some that come to mind would be the leadership camp. So we had one at the start of the year when I was in Year 12 with Bernie Kelly, with all the other house captains. That was so beneficial because not only did we get to know each other, but we really got to set our goals for the year and what we wanted to accomplish. So that was really positive. Additionally, Edmund Rice Camp, I loved that. It is so rewarding to, yes, you're taking time out of your holidays. However, to see the smile on those young kids' faces, that's so beneficial. And it's great that the college uses that as an initiative because otherwise I would have never known about it.
I think just all of the sport, like between, your rugby union and rugby league carnivals, all the rowing, and I suppose all the friendships. And, I think I was very fortunate with my year that we've all been able to keep in touch with a lot of them and have got a lot of good memories.
Shalom Day in that pastoral care system and in our house system, they're probably one of my favourite memories. Like, I would look forward to Shalom Day, and it was just fun just to be silly, and it was good. It was great.
Well, you had a lot of things that you can do to ensure that we get better and better. And I think, the numbers would show it, that's happened, and it's gone further on under Dan. So, I think it encouraged me to stay there anyway. I couldn't see a better place for me around at any time. And I mean, it would have taken something else if it was, if I wanted to go there, or there was some reason to go there, but there was no reason to go anywhere else.
I never thought coming here in 2009 that I'd be here as long as I have. Like it's I think in my career, the longest I'd stayed anywhere was 6 years. So that was, I thought that would be my span here. I suppose having my own children come here as a very young, they were both preschool, I think, when I came here, or Nick might have been in grade 1. Having them be able to come to a school like Shalom has certainly been a bit of an anchor for me. They've loved being here. They even put up with me coming here with me as the principal in the same school. But when I'm looking for a school for my children, and I've seen lots of schools, I haven't seen many better than this place. Not just the facilities. The facilities are fantastic, but we just have great people working here. We have great people engaged with those young people, and they've stepped into those activities here that have been really important to them and they've loved. Now for my two, it was performing arts and all those sort of things. And they've relished all that, and they relish those opportunities.
However it's achieved, and I still don't really understand how it's achieved, there is a wonderful pastoral care system here, and both of my children had great experiences here. So, it's lovely that 40 years later, something that I was part of at the beginning has evolved into what still is a lovely school to attend.
I spoke about the culture of the place and how important that is. Culture is created by the people here, by the people who are invested in the place. They create the culture, so the staff is really important. And I've said so often, the Shalom staff is among the best staff I've ever come across. The vast majority of staff go far over and above to offer a range of opportunities for young people, that they're welcoming, they're inclusive, that they like young people.
For a teacher to know that your principal values you, it's a huge thing. And so therefore I was always prepared to go an extra mile for him.
And I reflect on the care extended to me from Helen Stanley, from Debbie Bolam during different times of my life, and of course the most beautiful Kerry Bolam, who was also part of that.
My first day and first year at Shalom was pretty good. Like, I'd had my mum had just passed away the year before, so I think that year 8 at Shalom was pretty massive for me. Like, I had a lot of support from teachers, and I think going into a big environment and a new school and a different change, it was huge for me.
Dan McMahon and the primary school principals in Bundaberg, why their Indigenous student participation rate was so low, as opposed to the state schools in the area, where theirs was, their participation was around about 10 to 12% of their population. So the question was asked, obviously, and Dan didn't have any real idea as to why students weren't participating. So we embarked on a bit of a community engagement exercise, by which we met with Indigenous organisations and people from within the community and explained to the greater population as to what Shalom was really about.
Another one of the really positive changes that we've made at Shalom is the introduction of our Indigenous support unit. When I came to Shalom, I think we had 5 First Nations kids, or young people who identified as First Nations. I think today we're closer to 100. I'd really love to get to at least 10% of the population. They've been a great addition to the school, and I was able to work in 2009 and 10 with a guy called Tat Whaleboat, who had children here at the time, who was well known in the local First Nations community. and with that, opening up those communication channels with the First Nations people in Bundaberg has been a huge benefit for Shalom.
The pathway is there, and we've had some great success, over time, and having children that were had learning difficulties in their younger years, early learning years, and then having difficulty at home, in that family environment, and just bringing them out of that and showing that they can have something better.
You take one school and just build that, or the other school and build that, or do you build a school entirely its own? And that's what we tried to do. And that's what the brothers did initially, but they didn't stay for too many years, not too many years, but 5 or 6 years, but they suffered the same situation as did the other religious orders. But we had a couple of them for a while, and then we had Brother Rochford. He stayed on, and he was a link between the Christian brothers and the school.
Brother Rochford, I think, holds a special place in everybody's heart. He loved Shalom. He loved the students. He knew them all by name. We all know about the birthdays. Every day he would wish people happy birthday, staff included. But Brother was very passionate about the students feeling welcome, and that's why he did what he did. So he would be at every event. He would make sure that they felt that they belonged.
I invited him to come to Bundaberg. He came to Bundaberg, and in a very short time it was obvious to him and to me that his time in the classroom was no longer a good position for him. He was one of the old school teachers, and times had changed dramatically. But the happy fault of it was that he then saw there are other areas where he had great skills and where he was given the opportunity to use those skills. He started off as a resource person in religious education, but there was always the camera in hand. Brother Fuji, he was called then, goes back a long way, and he had all his slide presentations, moved into video productions, and then became a wonderful presence in the school community. And it's something, I think, which has stood this school in great stead for so many years. That presence, to be there, to know the people, to get to see the children, to welcome them each morning, to say goodbye every afternoon, that constant presence. So he changed what he was on about, and he loved what he was on about, and he thanked me greatly over the years for giving him the opportunity to do such as he did here. It wasn't no thanks to me, it was really him who wrote his own job description and went on with it and did it, which was great.
You'd have other people here, like I loved having Ed Bowen here. Ed Bowen was a cleaner here for, I don't know how long, decades. And he just went round every day and cleaned the bins and emptied the bins. But he chatted to people, and mostly staff, but he chatted to anyone, Ed, as he came in and emptied a bin and did that very humble service so beautifully. And he reminded us about servant leadership. If that's not part of our culture, we're missing something.
It's most important. I don't have a Wednesday if I don't come to Mass at Shalom. It's still my college.
I loved the kids at Shalom, they were great. For the most part, they were the odds and ends, both boys and girls. And I can tell you that I would much rather deal with a recalcitrant boy than a recalcitrant girl any day.
In the school, there were wonderful people there. My deputy, Helen Stanley, was just a delight as a woman and as a co-worker, very efficient and very good to work with. I was blessed in the office area by having Jan Applin as the secretary. She was just unbelievably good.
So it was more or less, 35 years as a principal, and but I was lucky because I started in, at the start of it, when other people were also starting to move out from schools, lay people like me, and set up schools or fill in schools and that sort of thing. And I think it's been pretty successful on the whole. Yeah.
I think to have some principals who had vision for the place, from, well, all of them really, but Nev Feeney, and then Pat Wall, and then continuing with Dan, you know, really building this place and adding to the facilities.
To come back each year and to see the opportunities that now present themselves for young people is absolutely fantastic. It's unbelievable what has occurred here through the hard work of a few to start it off, and then through the hard work of many others in the past, and of course will go on into the future, to develop something as a great school such as this is. And I think it's a real asset to the city of Bundaberg. And the thing I feel most strongly about is the fact that it has remained a school which, if I said pushes the barriers a little bit or the boundaries a little bit to make certain that inclusiveness and that the Christian values are kept and are delivered to the students and our young people these days, I think that's the most important thing that is done.
Well, there you have it. It's so impressive that a community came together to create something so special. Shalom continues to grow with its future brighter than ever. It's so exciting to look ahead at what is to come. I do wonder, what will Shalom College look like in 40 years? Shalom Kavarim, my friends.
In another 40 years. It will be different again. Schools, if they don't keep changing, they start dying. So it will be very different. I'd love to think that with all the differences there might be, those fundamentals will be the same. We'll be committed to that gospel message of Jesus, that those values that Jesus espoused, that he said were important about justice and compassion and respect and forgiveness and accountability. I hope with whatever Shalom looks like in 40 years' time, in 2064, those things will still be there, that they'll be hallmarks of the place. They'll be the touchstones of how this place operates, with all the other wonderful things that'll be happening. But those core values of being inclusive, of reaching out to those most in need, of the most vulnerable, of having a preferential option for young people in need, will still be there with all the other magnificent stuff that'll be going on.